Again, just for those that are joining, we're going to wait just another moment or so, make sure everybody has a chance to get logged in, and then we will get started with our professional development today. All right, Cristal, I am going to say, let's go ahead and get started. I will keep an eye on our participants and getting people into our session, but let's go ahead and get started so that we don't take away too much time out of everybody's day. So hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is our first professional development opportunity for all of you working learners and students here at ASU. Today we have Cristal from Career and Professional Development Services here with us. We're going to be talking about what it means to be established with your professional presence and networking as a student. So Cristal, I'll hand it over to you.
Awesome, thanks, Abby. So Abby mentioned, my name is Cristal. I use pronouns she, her, hers, and ella, and I'm one of our career and industry specialists with Career and Professional Development Services. And obviously, we're going to be talking about establishing a professional presence. So to jump right in, during the presentation, we're going to have an opportunity to get into LinkedIn and maybe some changes or tweaks that you all can be making to your profiles. If you would like to, you could definitely use this time to go ahead and pull up your LinkedIn profiles if you have those created. If not, no worries. You are definitely more than welcome to go ahead and try to set those up now. We won't get into the actual profile piece of the conversation until a couple slides here. So you definitely have a chance to do that. The session is obviously also recorded, so you can obviously access it at any other time as well. But as an overview for our conversation, we'll be talking about building your brand, obviously your LinkedIn profiles, networking, and how you might search for opportunities for networking as well. So first part of our conversation, right, is building your brand, right, or your professional presence. Now, we obviously use tools like LinkedIn for that. And then we also use our powerful introductions, right, which we'll definitely talk about throughout the conversation too. But essentially, right, this piece around building your brand is kind of establishing yourself, right, and establishing your professional presence within any work environment that you're in, right? That includes within the student roles that you're in right now.
Just going off of that, I would like to just bring the attention back to Work Plus and how this is all tying together. So as we are walking through this, I'd like you guys to keep in mind those professional stories that you all are working on, and we will be touching base on those a little bit more and how that comes to play. So just keep in mind the importance of professional storytelling and how that is going to go hand in hand with what Cristal is presenting.
Awesome. So jumping right in, LinkedIn is a really good way to jumpstart your career, right? We use social media like, maybe Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok, whatever it might be, right? To showcase the things that are exciting, right, in our own personal lives. We'll use LinkedIn specifically to showcase those pieces and highlight our experience, right? That's really exciting. LinkedIn is obviously a social network, but really it's designed for the purpose of your professional life, right? So this is, again, where you're going to be updating folks on how well you're doing, right, at ASU. This is also when we say, I'm so excited to announce that I graduated from ASU, right? So that we're letting organizations and other companies know that you're job searching, right? That kind of thing. But really, right, I want us to know that LinkedIn is for your professional growth, right? It's for your professional presence. especially online, right? LinkedIn is one of those tools that are really powerful and that a lot of organizations are using now to connect with employees or future candidates, however it might be. So it's important that we know that, right? So that we know to use them as well whenever we're conducting our searches, perhaps, right? Or just, again, to have that online presence. So building your personal brand on LinkedIn, you're first going to want to start by creating a distinctive headline, right? So LinkedIn allows you to create a little headline for yourself where you're kind of introducing who you are, right? So it's important that it's something that grabs folks' attention. You also want to be visible on LinkedIn, right? It's not enough to have an account on LinkedIn, and even, right, it's not enough to just have a profile on LinkedIn either. We want to make sure that we're engaging with other people, right, and with industry members potentially on your profiles as well. So you want to be visible, right? You're posting, maybe you're sharing articles that you've seen, maybe you're commenting on updates that your peers are giving, right? And you're also continuing to make connections. One of the really cool things on LinkedIn is that they'll actually tell you how many degrees, I guess, or how many connections away from an individual you are. So if you ever pull up someone's account and it says like second, third, or fourth, whatever it might be, that just means that there's other people that you are connected with that are also in some way connected with that individual too, which is really nice to know, right? Because it makes some of our introductions with those individuals a little bit easier. It's also important to know that you are showing people who you are and what you care about throughout your profiles, right? I was going to share a little bit about the consistency, right, with our messaging and how we present ourselves. So this is, again, an extension, right, of your applications, an extension of your online presence and your professional presence, right? It's really important that we are adding our knowledge on our profiles as well, right? So part of maintaining your brand is also, showing up in that space as a knowledgeable individual of regarding an industry, right? So if you know of industry language, maybe that comes up very regularly on those articles that you're reading with folks that you're connected with, then you can continue to use that language as well, right, on your own profiles. You're also wanting to make sure that you're joining groups and that you're contributing to those discussions as well, right? You're commenting, you're sharing, and you're also consistent, right, in your messaging as well.
So going off of being consistent in your messaging, I wanted to kind of focus on the fact that, so for those of you that are in the Canvas pathway for Work Plus and started those modules, you may have seen or already started some of your pair and shares, the peer reflections with your storytelling. And I just wanted to bring light to the fact that we, in the Work Plus program office, we do say that you can share this with anybody. It can be your supervisor, it can be, one of your colleagues, it can be your mom, a sibling, whoever. But you just need to make sure you are being consistent with the messages that you're using, the words that you're using. And again, consistency is key. So whether it is your supervisor or a family member, try to keep all of that messaging consistent and concise throughout.
Your LinkedIn profile. Before I jump into this portion of the conversation, I'm curious to see how many of us have a handshake, or not a handshake, excuse me, a LinkedIn profile created. So if we can throw it in the chat and just say like yes, or me, or I have one, whatever it may be. I just want to see how many of us have one at least created, right? It doesn't need to be a complete profile just yet. It definitely doesn't need to be, an active profile just yet. I just want to see how many of us have at least been on the platform.
And again, like Cristal just said, if you don't mind throwing it in the chat, or I see some people are giving some reactions, if you want to utilize the reaction buttons, we are seeing those as well.
Awesome, and I am getting some direct messages as well. That's great.
So far, to me, I'm seeing, I don't know about you, Cristal, but I'm seeing a lot of people do have a profile set up already.
Yeah, I do see that too. Good. So definitely go ahead and pull those profiles up, right? Maybe we're resetting our passwords perhaps right at this time too. But go ahead and pull those up. I think that would be probably the best use of the next piece of our conversation here. just so that you can be highlighting things, right, or making comments on those sections of your profile as we move through them. But to just start us off, these are those 6 must-have profile sections on your accounts, right, on your profile. So we've got a photo, your about section, your education section, obviously, experience, volunteer experience, and your skills as well, right? The reality is that 75% of hiring managers are looking at profiles to learn about candidates, right? I know for a fact that when I was being hired for my current position, right, my team took a look at my LinkedIn profile just to kind of check out, right, to see what I was up to, what I've been doing recently. So again, just know that hiring managers are looking at your profiles, and it's important that we do have each of these sections included on our profiles as well. So to jump right in, we first have the photo, right? This is where you're making your very first impression. So it's important that we are using a photo that represents us well, right? A lot of people ask, like, is it okay to have a picture with a friend of mine, even though it's obvious that it's my profile? Or is it okay to have a picture, you know, outdoors, whatever it might be, right? So just to kind of answer those questions now, we want to make sure that the pictures that we have included on our LinkedIn profiles is one of just us, right? Ideally, that photo is from our chest up. Ideally, we have a pretty clean looking or blank background even, right? So if you've got a white wall in your house, you can definitely use that. You also want to make sure, again, that you're selecting someone to take that photo for you, maybe a friend, whatever it might be. Abby's going to share some information with us here about some resources that are available to you all too. But ideally, right, your photo is clear, you can see your face really well, right? If you wear glasses regularly, then you definitely want to make sure you're wearing those for your photo as well. And all of this because there is the chance, right, 21 times more chances essentially of you getting views on your profile if you've got a photo, right? I want you all to think about it this way. As you are scrolling through things like Instagram or even TikTok, right? How many times do we think, yeah, I'm going to click on this profile that has no context available for me, right? Versus the times that we click on those profiles that have maybe a photo or even a catchy name, right? Whatever it might be. So again, there are huge benefits to making sure that we have a nice photo on our profile where you're alone, shoulders up, you're smiling, right? In the States, it's common to have a nice smiling face on your LinkedIn profile. You have a neutral background, and again, you don't need a fancy photographer, but lucky for you all, there are some services available for y'all that Abby will share.
Thank you, Cristal. So as she was just saying, I wanted to remind everybody that you all do have access and the ability to go to the Enterprise Marketing Hub and receive a free professional portrait there. So as student employees at ASU, those are offered free for you. And just a reminder, we do have a session that you all are more than welcome to join us, one tomorrow. So tomorrow, Thursday, January 27th, from 1 o'clock until 3. And then next week on Wednesday, February 2nd, from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. So again, those are offered free to any ASU student employees that are located down here in the Tempe, Phoenix area. Any ASU at Lake Havasu students, if you are unable to make it down here, we are setting up times for you all to have a professional photographer up there, and just keep an eye on your inbox for those Havasu students, and I will get you that date for those.
Awesome. The next section here is going to be your about, right? So this should really be used to help describe your interests and your key accomplishments. Now, for a couple of reasons, right? LinkedIn uses keywords to suggest different positions to you that are related, essentially, right, to the language that you're including already on your LinkedIn profiles. So your About Me section is really your opportunity to clearly say, this is my mission, these are my values, this is what I'm interested in, and this is what I'm good at, right? That then, again, sends kind of like a little message to, you know, the LinkedIn nebulous, whatever it might be, right? That will, again, start pulling that language that's related to some positions that you might be qualified for, or to positions that might be really interesting to you. A couple of things here is, right, you want to make sure that you're naming the industry that you're interested in, right? If you want positions to be recommended to you within a specific industry, you want to make sure that you're naming that industry in your About Me section. And you're also using your powerful introduction to assist you as well. So for those of us who aren't super familiar with the language around powerful introductions, essentially your elevator pitch, right? So it's a quick 30-second sort of summary, maybe, of your skills, experience, and interests in an industry, right? Within an industry, within a company even, right? So we're including that information also on our About sections.
And again, the Work Plus program, going throughout the pathway, you guys are working hard on your storytelling and how to articulate all of these skills that you all are working on and developing. So those storytelling pieces, I know you guys are going to hear a lot, but are very important. And you will see throughout the presentation different pieces where the storytelling comes in, and your About section is definitely one of those.
Moving to our education section on that LinkedIn profile. The members who list a school get on average 10 times more views on their profiles. Right? The reason for that is because as soon as we're able to maybe align ourselves, right, with this large established organization, the more that other individuals that are looking at our profiles, or that are filtering through many, many profiles, right, are going to be able to identify us. And they're going to say, this person graduated from this really established institution, right, like ASU. So if you don't have ASU listed on your LinkedIn profiles, I definitely recommend doing so. A little tip that I have for you all is, if you spell, like, use the letters, right, that acronym ASU, you won't actually be connected directly to Arizona State University, right? Arizona State University does have their own sort of profile on LinkedIn. So if you want that little ASU icon next to your education section, then you'll want to make sure you're actually writing out Arizona State University, so that you're directly connected to this large organization, right? This large institution. You want to make sure that you're adding the school that you're graduating from, right? So the actual college that your degree is within. Obviously, you're stating if you're graduating with a Bachelor of Science or a Bachelor of Arts, whatever it might be. And then some students also choose to include any clubs or organizations that they've been involved in. Definitely for those of you all that are involved with Barrett, right? There are Barrett students. You'll want to make sure you're including that in your education as well. Any honoraries that you all are a part of, those are all parts that you can include on your education section too. Some questions that I get around the education section is also GPA. You're more than welcome to include your GPA on your LinkedIn profile. There's like a little section for it, which is really nice. And any relevant coursework as well, right? So when I say relevant coursework, I mean coursework related to your interests, right? So coursework that kind of helps establish maybe like a mini expertise for yourself, right? Where you're a psychology major, but you're really interested in criminal justice, right? So then you say, I'm a psychology major, but then you indicate those criminal justice classes are going to help you get a job within the criminal justice field, right? So that's what I mean when I say relevant coursework. Projects can also be included in here as well, right? So for those of you that are Baird students, you might be working on a thesis, or you all might have a class that you're really interested in, where there's a large project that you're working on. You can go ahead and include those pieces on your LinkedIn as well. One thing that I do want to say, right, is after we get our career started and we are like 3 years down the line, and we take a look at our LinkedIn profiles and we say, maybe this project that I completed a few years ago isn't as relevant, or doesn't represent me the way that I want to be represented at this point in time. I want you all to recognize too, right, that it's completely okay to remove that information from our profiles too. So you do not need to keep everything that you set right now. That's why LinkedIn profiles are editable, right? So you can definitely choose to highlight whatever represents you the best at that point in time that you're going to really be using, right, and engaging with your LinkedIn profile, like during job searches or when you're wanting to network with other individuals as well. And we have our experience section. where you are demonstrating what you've achieved, right? Profiles with 2 or more positions are up to 36 times more likely to be found by recruiters, right? And that is really significant, especially if you're job searching, right? You want to be on that within that 36 times more likely, right? You want to make sure that employers are looking at your profile and say, look, this person has a lot of experience. It aligns really well with what we're looking for, right? And in the section 2, you can be including things like internships, summer jobs, part-time jobs. This even extends into any like full-time roles that some of y'all are engaged in as well. You can be including volunteer work also, which I'll talk about in the next slide here. But really, it's any work experience that you have, right? And I want us to also recognize that not all work experience is paid, right? So some experience is not, and it's completely okay to include that on our LinkedIn profiles too. In those sections, right, we want to make sure that we're saying what the position is that we held. We want to describe the organization that we held that position at. Obviously, you're listing how long you worked there, and then you have a description, right, where you're talking about what you accomplished. So I want us maybe to step away a little bit in thinking in terms of these are the tasks that I completed within this position, and move more into thinking this is what I accomplished while I held that role, right? Yeah. So I know you all talk about your ability to workflow specifically, right? Talks a lot about how you can sort of discuss your experience right now as student workers. So I was going to share a little bit more about that with us.
Yes, so as you all know, Work Plus, we are here to help you all work more meaningfully in your student employment role. So a great example that I love to share is, whatever your career may be, this one that I'm going to share with you specifically. I had a student who was a front desk employee. They greeted, whether it was ASU community members, whether it was, professional staff, faculty, fellow classmates, or community members from the town. They are constantly engaging with community members. They're answering the phones, they're helping file papers, set up meetings. And the student just kind of looked at me and they laughed and they're like, well, this has nothing to do with my career. I want to be a police officer. So helping tie those examples back into, well, as a police officer, you need to know how to talk with the community. You need to know, how to properly schedule meetings and set time aside to get your job, your duties done properly, right? So I want you guys all to know that your student employment, those positions, this is experience and valuable experience that you all are gaining. And you should definitely include these on your LinkedIn profiles as well. So don't discredit the work that you're doing here at ASU. Definitely be proud of that and include that on your profiles.
Moving to volunteer experience. So just so you all know, I know sometimes we think of all types of experience as just being within experience. On LinkedIn, it does separate this out a little bit, but that does not mean, right, that volunteer experience isn't valued, right? 41% of hiring managers consider volunteer experience equally as valuable as paid work experience, right? And I know that a lot of us engage in volunteer experience or community service, whatever it might be, regularly, right? And some of us tend to do that work a lot more than some of our paid roles too, right? So please know the time that you're using to engage in volunteer experience is also valuable. So you want to make sure you're highlighting that on your LinkedIn profile as well. The only difference here is that you don't necessarily need to go in and describe fully, what you accomplished within that role for your volunteer experience in the same ways that you do maybe for your work experience. But you're definitely more than welcome to. Just letting y'all know that it's not a full expectation that you go in and build out a summary, right, of that experience in the way that we do it for our work experience. And another section here is our skills section, right? So what this does for us is whenever a recruiter says, I want to learn or I want a list of individuals who have used communication, problem solving, and leadership in the past. If you've indicated those 3 skills on your profile already, you're going to be sort of added to the people of, or to the list of candidates that they can look at to review as well, just so you know. So it's beneficial, one, to be highlighting the things that you're good at, right? And to be specific about the things that you're good at, the skills that you're good at. But it also really helps whenever you're looking for jobs as well. We also really recommend that you include skills that you can speak to, right? So it's not enough to say that you're a good communicator and that you're a good leader. You also want to make sure that you can provide examples of the ways that you use those skills in the past, right? So maybe you say that you're a communicator, and then in the future, someone asks you, hey, I noticed that your LinkedIn profile lists communication as a top skill of yours. I've noticed that other people have endorsed you, right? Endorsements on LinkedIn are essentially when someone goes on our profile and says, yes, I know that this person can communicate really well, right? So maybe a recruiter saying someone's endorsed you on communication. How have you used that in the past, right? You want to be able to describe the situations in which you've used your ability to communicate in the past as well.
Going off of that, I just want to reiterate the fact of how important storytelling is. Again, you just heard Cristal say that people want clear examples and storytelling. So as you're going throughout that in the pathway, you are already building those stories and you already should have those examples ready to go for, yes, here's a clear example of how I used communication at this job doing this task, right? And just going off of that, when you are completing modules throughout the Canvas pathway for Work Plus, you are receiving those digital badges. And those digital badges you can display on your LinkedIn profile. So that's just giving even more credibility to the fact that, yes, you know the communication skill and you are able to clearly talk about it and how you can demonstrate communication in your professional setting.
I do want to add here to your skill section too, right? It's important that we add all of the skills, right? All the things that we're good at. But like I said, you want to make sure you're able to speak to them. So what I always recommend is selecting anywhere between 6 to 10 skills to list on your LinkedIn profile. And LinkedIn will actually allow you to like highlight your top 3 because essentially the way that the LinkedIn profile is built is it'll show you your top 3 without having to expand your like that little drop down. So that way, honestly, that truthfully mostly helps if someone is just quickly glancing through your profile and wants to see what you've said that you're good at. But again, those top 3, you need to be able to provide examples for those, definitely. Moving to networking, right? We talked about LinkedIn as being a really important tool for networking specifically, mostly again, because you're establishing your professional presence, you're using those stories, right? You are reflecting on your previous experience and showcasing it. Networking specifically is another opportunity, right, for us to continue to do that as well, especially through platforms like LinkedIn. Getting a referral is the best way to find a job, right? About 85% of jobs get filled through employee referrals. So what that means is that most jobs never actually get posted, right? Some jobs are actually just word of mouth and someone says, I know that I've worked with Abby in the past and I know that she was able to, organize this really impactful conversation for students. And that's exactly the type of person that we need in this role, right? And again, that role might not actually get posted and it just becomes something that we sort of discuss internally because Abby at that point has built rapport, right? Has established herself within the organization. And it's also the top way that companies recruit, right? So again, if we know that companies are doing it, then we want to make sure that we're sort of training ourselves to engage in that way as well. So on LinkedIn, you want to make sure that you are connecting with the people that you know, right? So that might start with your friends, your family, maybe your classmates, your mentors, your teachers, professors, right? So start within that really quick sort of network that you already have built in just because you're a student at ASU, right? Your professors, your mentors, your classmates. But you also want to make sure that you're personalizing those invitations so that they know who it is that's talking to them, right? So if you are connecting with a professor that you took a class with maybe 2 semesters ago, then you want to make sure that you're reminding them, hey, I took this class with you. I found it really interesting, and I was consistently engaged in the course. I appreciate the knowledge that you shared with us. I'd love to connect with you further, right? That's just one example of a way that we might connect with folks on LinkedIn.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Evan.
I was just going to say, for those of you, if you do have your LinkedIn profiles pulled up now, and you would like to kind of look at the connections, how that might work, I would suggest maybe starting with some of your fellow classmates, any of your colleagues, fellow working learners that are in this Work Plus program, building that network. And by starting with those people that you already know, you might be a little more comfortable sending that initial message. I know it can be intimidating if you're reaching out, like Cristal mentioned, if it's a professor that you may have had a few semesters ago, it could be intimidating reaching back out to them. So start with people you are familiar with and really get down the verbiage that you want to use, what words, and making sure that you're coming off as professional as you can. And again, making sure that it is personalized enough that it doesn't sound like you just hit a mass send all to 50 people. So keep it personalized and start with folks that you are familiar with, that you feel comfortable with, and from there reach out to further your network.
Would it be possible to ask a quick question?
Yes, please go ahead.
Awesome. So referring back to the referrals part, so the slide before, I always was interested in this aspect. Let's say you network with someone at a company that you're interested in and wanting to work in, and you see a role that's a potential fit. Would it be better to not apply to the role yet, try to talk to them, and if they're willing to refer you on the back end, they'll send you a referral link? Or would it be better to apply to the job first, and then in your conversation with the coffee chat, say like, hey, I've actually applied for this. Is there any way you can give me further visibility in my application? Just curious to hear your thoughts as whether route 1 is more effective or route B, given that there's different time constraints for each respective application.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for that question, Jasper. So I do just want to clarify, right? There's many different ways that we get to network, right? Sometimes it's by following that first process that you said, right? Maybe you connect with them first, and then you submit an application. Sometimes we submit our application first, and then we find out about about a conversation that they're organizing as well, right? So truthfully, at that point, it's really what response fits the best with the situation that you're in. However, the ideal situation is that hopefully you've already had a conversation with them beforehand, right? So that way you've already begun to establish rapport with that individual, so that you're not only relying on those couple of messages that you're sharing with them, right? You're relying on an actual relationship that you've built with them before you've applied to that job. That's a good question. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for clarifying. Thank you, Cristal.
So moving to crafting a powerful introduction. So I mentioned this language a little bit, right? We might have also heard an elevator pitch potentially, right? Those are all pretty common sort of names for essentially this 30-second, really quick little pitch where you're talking about your interests, your experience, your strengths, skills, and competencies, right? Those skills that you're really strong in, those transferable skills that you're really strong in, and where you're also explaining what you're looking for. Right. So Jasper, I'm just going to pick on you for a little bit here because you asked the question, but if Jasper would connect someone right on LinkedIn and say, I'm really interested in this organization. I have experience in these areas. I know that my strengths are this, this, and this. And I also recently submitted an application. I'd love to discuss this organization with you a little bit further. Right. So where maybe that explanation part isn't necessarily I want you to look at my job, right? I don't want you to look at my application, but you're actually saying, I want to connect with you further about your organization, right? So it's all about connection whenever we're thinking of networking. So here we move on to mapping your future, specifically with the alumni tool on LinkedIn. So I'm actually going to hop out of my presentation slides here for a little bit so I can demonstrate this quickly for us. But essentially on LinkedIn, you all have the opportunity to identify alumni, essentially, or folks that have been in some way connected with ASU. If you just look for Arizona State University, as I mentioned, we do have our own profile here on LinkedIn. So you'll click on that profile there. And then here you'll click on the alumni tab. And that'll give you all the results for any alumni, right? So anyone that's graduated from ASU, these are all individuals that you all can be connecting with. So one of the things that I like to do is if I have a company in mind, right, I might go ahead and include them on here. Another thing that you can also do is I'll just use Amazon as an example, just because it's a pretty large organization, but you can also search their people's tab, right? And go ahead and type Arizona State University here as well. That'll give you results for anyone who has been in some way connected with Amazon. So I like to use this way too, mostly because this also includes people that maybe didn't graduate from ASU, but they've completed an internship with Amazon, right? Or they worked a part-time job with Amazon. So those are all individuals that we can be connecting with as well. So as I mentioned, right, we want to use tools like that in order to be able to tap into those connections, right? You know that maybe this individual had a job within the organization that you're really interested in. So we're connecting with them. We're saying, you know, what was your experience like working with this organization, right? But you're also starting with who you are, how you came across your profile, right? So if we can say, you know, I found your profile because I was searching for people that had worked at Amazon before, that helps us just a little bit, right? Because it makes it feel a little less disconnected, right? It makes it feel like we put in a little bit of effort to specifically find that individual. At that point, they might be a little more receptive to connecting with us, right? To having that conversation. And then you also want to make sure you're asking them for help, right? What is it that you're looking for? Is it just that introduction? Are you hoping for some information on the organization? Are you hoping for some information on the job that you're really interested in, right? I do want to say, right, do not be afraid to reach out. More often than not, folks will connect back with you on LinkedIn, right? People are excited to have new talent join the workforce, right? They're really excited to be connecting with people who are excited about their jobs and their own careers, right? So do not be afraid to connect with individuals on LinkedIn. So now we move into researching opportunities, right? Researching opportunities for connection. Obviously, we talked about that alumni tool on LinkedIn, but you also want to make sure that you're following companies, right? So if you know that you want to work with Amazon, then you go ahead and follow them, right? What that's going to do is it'll actually start to curate your feed for you on LinkedIn, and it'll give you articles that maybe that organization publishes or articles that someone that works within that organization publishes. And at that point, you can kind of stay up to date, right, with what's going on within that company. You can also be following influencers, right? So people who you know, maybe leaders within the organization, who you know that make a big impact, right, within that organization. Those are all wonderful people to be connecting with. Obviously, here we have Dr. Crow as our example for ASU. And then you're also following industries, right? So I talked about how important it is to enter conversations with knowledge, right? And with awareness of industry language, with awareness of industry trends. So by following those industries on LinkedIn, again, we're kind of receiving knowledge articles or updates potentially right through LinkedIn that we can then use whenever we're job searching or whenever we're just wanting to build up our network. 9 out of 10 company recruiters use LinkedIn. And again, like I said, if we know that they are using LinkedIn, then we should also be engaging with the platform as well. Whenever we're researching opportunities, right, it's important that we are looking at company culture, right? So that we know, I know that I want to work within an organization that values the entire team's input, right, when making large decisions. So that I'm searching for company culture, right? And I'm looking through their profile and I'm looking for anything that tells me that they would value my opinion, right? I'm looking for an organization that's inclusive, that's supportive, that's communicative, that's collaborative, right? Because those are things that I really value in an office and that I know help me work better, right? And help me stay excited about my job. But then we're also looking for ways to get our foot in the door, right? We're looking for those individuals that we can be connecting with. If we see someone posting articles and it's, you know, the same individual and they're posting weekly, we know that's an individual that we can connect with. And that connection can start by you saying, hey, I've noticed that you've engaged a lot, that you shared a lot of information on LinkedIn. I'm really curious to hear about your experience with this organization, or I'm really curious to learn about your career path, right? Those are all definitely ways that we can connect and sort of build up our network using LinkedIn. I did just want to throw this in here for us too, right? As you're job searching, you're obviously building things like resume, right? So you can be including your LinkedIn URLs on your resume as well. You want to make sure that you condense that link down too, right? If you go onto your LinkedIn profile and at the top, your URL, it says linkedin.com/in/7BQ, whatever it is at that tail end, right? You want to make sure you edit that to be your name. So to do that, you can go on the Me tab by viewing your profile, and then you'll edit your public profile and URL. And then at that point, you can go ahead and enter your first and last name is what we recommend. Now, if that information is taken, right, so if someone else has already used your Cristal last name for their URLs, then you can just add a 1, right? But I don't want us to be adding too many letters or numbers to the tail end of that. I do just want to sort of give a little plug here for CPDS in our office, some of the services that we provide. So through Handshake, by going to asu.handshake.com, you can set up an appointment with our team, with our career advisors, to have your LinkedIn profile reviewed. We also have lots of conversations around building your network, right, and what that can look like as well. So you're more than welcome to connect with us. Again, that's asu.joinhandshake.com. That does bring us to the end of our conversation here. So I want us all to just take a little bit of time, right, to reflect. In the next 24 hours, what's one thing that we're going to do that's going to put us on the path to success, right? Is it going to be maybe updating your education section to make sure that you've got that ASU logo, right? Are you maybe editing your headline on LinkedIn, right, to switch it from ASU student to enthusiastic ASU psychology student, right? And just adding a little more description to that as well. At this point, if we do have any questions, I'm more than happy to hear those. I have included some of our contact information here. I've got our website, email, and phone number. We've also got some information there for WorkPlus, their website and email as well. And then obviously that link there to join, to connect with us on Handshake.
Thank you so much, Cristal. Like she just said, everybody, if you all have any questions or concerns, or you would like, further explanation on something, feel free to ask us now. We do have a few moments here at the end. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to come off mute and ask your question, throw it in the chat box, whatever it may be. And if we
question here in the chat for if I can review how you would edit your URL on LinkedIn, I can definitely show you all how to do that now. So if you jump onto your LinkedIn profile, so to get to your profile, you can go ahead and click view profile here under this little me drop down. That'll bring you to your profile here, and then you'll go ahead and click edit public profile and URL. And then from there, you'll just click on this little pencil guy here, and that'll let you edit that tail end of your link. Yeah, thanks so much for that question, Emanuela.
I just got another question here, Cristal. On LinkedIn, it asks for a personal summary. This student put some information about their education, one of their internships that they did, some cool projects with it, and then a list of skills from other jobs. Would this be a good summary, or should they be taking a different approach?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, our about sections, they can flex, right? And we can be using those to highlight whatever is important to us at that point in time. Any internship experiences or job experiences that you've had that you feel have deeply influenced your passions or your interests, absolutely, please go ahead and include those in your About Me section. Because it does a couple things, right? First, it communicates to other people what's important to you, but it also tells other people a little bit about your credentials, right? And a little bit about what you've accomplished in the past. So definitely please be including information on internships. Now, I do want to say that you will want to make sure you describe that experience as well in under your experience section. So maybe it's a quick synopsis of like the one big project that you worked on, right? But yeah, absolutely, you can definitely be including that information as well. And then I have another question here. How are we supposed to write our first message to a hiring manager on LinkedIn? That's a really good question. So I'm actually going to use, Abby, if you don't mind, I'll use your profile as an example here.
Okay.
So if I know that Abby is someone that I want to be connected with, right? Abby and I are already connected with on here on LinkedIn, but if I haven't messaged her just yet, then I can just search up their name and then go ahead and hit message, and there I can type my message to Abby, right? So again, that message should say why I'm connecting with her, who I am, how I found her profile, right? And again, my interests, skills, and any experience related to that conversation, right? That's a good question, thank you.
I have another one here, Cristal.
Go ahead.
Do you think we should publish our resume on our LinkedIn profile? The student says that they had advice, that they've received advice saying that that might look desperate. What do you think? Is that desperate to have my resume on my profile, or am I okay to have that there?
That's a really good question. So the reality is, right, when you are publishing your resume anywhere, when you're using your resume, ideally you're using it because you're trying to land a specific job, right, or a specific role, an internship, whatever it might be. So because of that, right, sometimes we go through and really tailor our resumes for that job description or for that posting. So that means that our resume could potentially become too specific to put on something like a profile, like a public profile in this way. However, that being said, if you have a cumulative resume, right, or like a master resume is language that's also commonly used, where you are sort of including all of the experience that you've gathered, or maybe it's not specific to a job, but you're really highlighting the things that are important to you, that can be included on your LinkedIn account. However, I do want to say, right, LinkedIn does allow us to specifically go through and already do that just built into our profiles, right, where we're describing our experience. So I might recommend to do that instead, and then save your resume for a specific application. That's a really good question. Thank you.
I just received another one asking about, so looking again at the About section, is there a proper way to display that information? They're asking because they've seen some About sections coming from the first person and then some coming from third person. So is there a proper way that I should have that displayed on my profile?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Right, so whenever you are listing any kind of information on your LinkedIn profile, it doesn't matter so much if you use first person or third person, as long as it's consistent, right? So I want to show you all something here, right? Throughout my profile, my About section is written in the I, right? So in the first person. So I talk about how I identify in a certain way in my lived experience, right? Also in my descriptions here, I'm talking about as a career advisor, I support students, right? And it's all written from my perspective, right? So you can definitely choose to do that. I've also seen individuals who say, like, for example, Cristal identifies as Latina, a woman of color, and a first-generation college student, right? So as long as it's consistent throughout, you can choose to use whichever you'd like to use.
Wonderful, thank you. We do have just about 10 more minutes. If anybody else has any other questions or clarifications that they would like to ask Cristal or myself, now would be a great time. Cristal, I'm not getting any more questions. I don't know if you are or not, but if we are not, then we can go ahead and wrap this up and give you guys about 10 more minutes back to your day. Of course, thank you all so much for tuning in today and participating with us. We had lots of great questions. Oh, I'm so sorry. I did just receive one more question. Can we put experience on LinkedIn? That was from a long time ago, since it isn't on my resume, but it was still a great experience.
That's a really good question. Yeah, really good question. So one of the really nice things about LinkedIn, right, is that there's no space limit. So where a resume is kind of our opportunity, it's our highlight reel, right? So this is where we're picking the most relevant, most exciting experiences that we've held in the past that has prepared us for a specific job. LinkedIn kind of, again, functions more to establish your presence, right? So if you are really excited about a previous experience, Carissa, that you want to highlight, you can definitely go ahead and do that on your LinkedIn profile. What that actually does is it establishes, again, your presence a little bit further. It, it reminds people of the things that are important to you, right? Because you don't have to include it, right? So if you do choose to include it, it definitely signifies to employers that that's something that genuinely excited you, for sure. That's a good question. I'm not getting any other questions, so I think we're good, Abby.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Cristal, for joining us. And again, to all of you Sun Devils out there, feel free to reach out to myself. You can contact me directly at abby.anderson@asu.edu. You can send an email here to the workplus@asu.edu email address. Visit us online. And if you guys have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out to myself, reach out to your supervisors. We all are a community here in the WorkPlus program, and we are here to help each other. So thank you all again for spending this afternoon with us, and I look forward to talking with you all soon. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day.